Good morning, all, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Barnstable County Commissioners on this day of February 13th, 2013. So please rise and join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please take a moment and remember all of the men and women who serve in our armed forces, and especially those who have lost their lives for us. Thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak under public comment on any matter that is not part of the agenda? Jerry?
But maybe there is.
And you can announce who you are for the record.
Jerry Rappaport, representing the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area. And as you know, the League has been a long-time supporter since our beginning for a regional formation of government. And we're very active in pressing for the new charter 20-some years ago. And throughout all those years, somebody has been here from the League observing and taking part. This is a pretty informal comment, but yesterday, my committee, along with the chairman, were taking stock of all the issues that were outstanding, where we were, and it occurred to us, we really ought to acknowledge a lot of things that have been happening along the way. Before we continue with saying you ought to do this or that. And I wrote it all down, and trying to be inclusive, I forgot the most major thing I wanted to say, which was the way the commissioners took hold of the recommendation to deal with wastewater quickly and to involve the whole county and all the towns in so doing. So I didn't put that in by mistake, so I don't want to give you a copy till I correct it.
Okay.
But that was really just really great to remember, and that it has been continuing so nicely. We've been participating and watching and active. But I'd say that among the most recent steps, we know you have given a lot of attention to open meeting issues, which we've been here constantly, and the related policy. And we wanted to say that we realize you have developed a very clear policy on public comment, which wasn't here before. You did it with Mr. Troy and made it a very complete statement so people know. You'll also have more detailed agendas, and I noticed today even more detail on what you were looking at, the contracts. And so it's easier for us to follow what you're really working with every day. And you often give us, but not always, the materials that you're considering, so that we have the resolution today. And then you have strengthened the procedures with the resolutions and ordinance procedures, so how you work with the assembly is more orderly and detailed, and we know, you know, and they know what to expect. And you have taken very seriously our requests and from others for more outreach and communication with the public. We're very excited about the concepts being developed for a user-friendly website and a strengthened IT department, and what it can mean not only for communication to the public, but as an integral mechanism for interdepartmental activities and administration in general. And you know, we of course have been frustrated like you at the length of time all these changes make, but so many good things do happen, and we wanted to acknowledge that. Furthermore, we saw that the work on the 2014 budget has included the separation of the fiscal director from the county administrator's office as presented by an assembly ordinance, as well as a recommendation from the MMA report that you comment and the Special Commission on Governance. And you have recently committed to developing a budget philosophy as you work on preparing the budget. And for the first time, that's been done, and you have planned to invite the Assembly to participate in the development of that philosophy. Another bridge, which we think is really great. And you have cited the current strategic planning process as the vehicle for developing goals and the procedures for far more reaching things in the future. We're very eager to know more about that progress. Taking a long time. Again, it's frustrating, as I said, for you as well as for the public, but these are really important steps. We also are looking forward to a full report on the Special Governance Commission. We've had pieces here and there, and I know from being here you've done a lot of work, but we would urge you to make a full report with some detail, what you did, what you didn't do, and why. It would be nice to have that real sense. Our league, will always be here with our comments and things that we issue, especially transparency and communication to the public, as well as structural issues. This is about the agenda, but we have a request. We hope that when you go through the resolution, discussion will include the rationale for your various opinions. And we thank you for listening, and we thank you for your concern and hard work.
Thank you, Jerry.
Jerry, did you have written comments? You had written comments, right?
Yeah, I have to
You're gonna
add
correct
She has to add the wastewater.
Just send them to me, and then
Okay,
I'll make them part of the
I
record.
think we weren't really terribly impressed to have that thing flow immediately and go.
Good. Jerry, thank you so much for that. No, really, thank you so much for doing this and for being here. Because sometimes we don't always take the time to go back 6 months or 8 months and see where we've been and what we've actually either accomplished or not, or still on the
docket.
on the docket to
You were in
be.
that position too,
And
and for our meeting, I went through what I had to really tell our people, and we have so many communications, but to put them in order, and it really hit us as we did this, so many positive things have happened, and we're very pleased.
Well, thank you.
Good, thank you very much. The other comment upon it takes time. Government moves slowly. I think government moves slowly for several reasons. First of all, we're spending taxpayers' money. So I think we have to be careful and judicious about how we spend it, and that we don't spend it in a wasteful way, or we don't spend it on issues that have not been well thought out. And on top of that is that there are 215,000 people who live on Cape Cod, and everything we do affects them in some way. So public input is always important too. And government's criticized for moving slowly, but sometimes I think it's better to do it right than to do it quickly. And so, not that we can't move a little faster, but that's part of the reason why we take more time to do what we do, is because it affects so many people, and it's their money that we're spending.
And you're responsible to them.
Yes, exactly. Right. So thank you. Is there any other public comment? No? Hearing none, then we can begin our discussion on Resolution 13-01, which is a restructuring of county government as passed by the Assembly of Delegates on February 6, 2013. Does everybody in the audience have a copy of this? Everybody here at the meeting? There are some, I think, extra copies on the table over there, Bill?
I'd like to start off by saying that I am in complete agreement with the statement in this resolution that says, this resolution represents the opinion of the Assembly of Delegates relative to the model and initial steps that are necessary to implement the restructuring of county government. The emphasis on opinion. So therefore, since it is an opinion, and since the resolution covers matters that are more appropriately, in my opinion, dealt with by a charter review process, then I would say that I look forward to hearing about the convening of such a charter review so that this matter could be discussed by the Charter Review Committee in greater detail.
Okay, I think under executive branch, which is the idea is they're proposing a board of 5 regional commissioners, each elected from one of 5 districts. Well, we don't have 5 districts right now, so 5 districts would have to be created. Also, they have to be balanced by population, and they would not be the same as the current House districts, because right now we have, 6 representatives, but one of them only represents half of Falmouth, and then he represents the Vineyard and Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. So it's not it's not just the Cape.
And
So the
Gifford-
current
and-
House districts would not work.
And Gifford only represents a part of Bourne, right?
Right.
Okay.
And so actually, there's more than 6. Second part of that is we have a Senate district, and we have House districts, and then we would have county districts. And I think that has to be looked at. Obviously, it's going to take the Secretary of State to be very much involved in that, because they have to approve, if not even define. I think somebody has to define what those districts are. But anyway, that's one issue that has some complications. Not that they can't be overcome, but that they need to be studied. The second part, the county administrator, we have already begun the separation of that, because as Jerry said, it is in the budget to have a separate county administrator and a separate director of finance. So that's in the budget. That would be, assuming that the Assembly accepts that as part of the budget, that would go into effect July 1. The legislative branch already exists as it is right now. So there's no change that they're proposing to the legislative branch. They're proposing that it stay exactly the way it is. So I think it is an opinion. We're working on one. The second could maybe best be accomplished through a charter review committee. There are other ways to do it. Maybe we might want to put on our agenda not the next meeting, because I think next week we present the budget to the Assembly, but maybe a meeting after that, is to have a discussion about the various ways in which the executive branch could be changed by virtue of the statutes. What other statutes might apply to making that change?
And what support will we need in order to evaluate that?
Well, we would certainly have to have county council
Yes.
there,
Okay.
and when we have any discussion like that.
Mhm.
And that would be also my suggestion to the Assembly. When they're discussing, I would think when they are discussing changes that are charter changes, that it would probably be helpful to them if they had an attorney present who could guide them in their discussion.
Indeed, county council, I think, is available to them for these
Yeah,
discussions.
that's very true.
Because county council not only is our council, but also is their council.
So, Sheila, comments from you?
Yeah, I also agree that this is an opinion. I think it's an opinion that is reflecting sort of like the last year and a half of history of these different studies that we've had done and that sort of thing. And I agree with Bill. I think that there is some room for charter review here. And, these are things, the executive branch, the legislative branch, I do think it's, a little ironic that they didn't address the legislative branch's structure when they're very willing to look at the commissioners. And I'm not sure where that is, because you're just adding more people to have a review over a very small budget. And, we have a smaller budget than many towns. And, and now we're just
Every town
adding
but 3.
more layers of people in that process, as opposed to trying to make it a little bit more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that there's room for this. And, we keep talking about it. And these are things that are not within our reach. We can I think a charter review could look at the language of what does it say now, and how would these types of changes be put into effect? How would that read? What is the, I do think a lawyer has to guide the process, because you can talk from instinct and this is what I think should happen. And then, you have someone, a man of the knowledge of the law to say, but that isn't within legal law. I mean, these are your parameters. So you need someone to help you through that process, because just because your gut tells you one thing doesn't mean it's possible. So in some ways, if we're looking at, and part of our goal is to make county government more sustainable, relevant for the future. So it really has nothing to do with us and how it's, and maybe we should reach out to the speaker and talk about forming a charter review. Because if we were going to do a charter review and have real recommendations, I mean, a very thorough and very inclusive, maybe have a member of the league, we could appoint people to, we could appoint somebody to represent us.
The charter review process is very specific. It can be called at the behest of the speaker anytime he wants. And it specifically identifies the people that, they can appoint anybody they want. And it's useful if you appoint people outside of the county to be
Absolutely.
part
I
of it.
think that we need people who, maybe even some of the people that were on the special, people who know the county, who have worked with the county a long time, understand the pros and cons of how it works. But maybe we should make that gesture to the speaker, saying that we would be willing to work with the assembly, to work with the charter review, because to actually do very good work. And the details of the districts, I mean, all we have to do, all Cape Cod has to say is, we agree with the concept of change. And we don't know what that concept is until it's really sort of flushed out. Not every minute detail, that's legislative work. They're the ones that figure out the districts, they're the ones that figure out the minutiae of those things. But in concept, we believe that the structure is, it's time for some change to make it more flexible and responsive and representative of everyone. So I agree with this. I think it's an opinion. It's the Assembly's opinion. In principle, I agree with a lot of the things that are said here. And I do think that if we do want to make changes, those changes would have to be finalized, final language put forward to the legislature a year from June, if I'm right.
Yeah,
So that, and it really does take that time. I was
Takes
on
a
the
lot
last
of time.
charter review, and if you have 6 weeks, or you're going from November to December, or whatever it was we started, October to December, it's just not enough time. You're lucky if you get the I's and the T's crossed right. So I think it's a good gesture on their part. I think that they're looking at what we're doing and supporting it in many ways. And then the rest of the things we can still take care of on our own. The internal work that we're doing as far as beefing up our administrative, our staff, and the internal changes we need to do. We can continue with that, and the charter review can really look at language.
So I think too that if you remember that the special commission recommended that the commissioners increase to either 5 or 7,
Right.
and the assembly be
Reduced.
not be reduced,
Eliminated.
Eliminated.
be eliminated.
Right.
I mean, that was the reason for increasing the commissioners. Do I think 3 is good?
But can I point out just one more fundamental, sort of the fundamental change in my mind from the special commission was strengthening county administrator and making that the executive.
Mhm.
Increasing the number of seats on the county commissioner and really making that the legislative.
branch.
And
Exactly.
eliminating the assembly.
Right,
And
right.
sort of, in my mind, that's the whole loaf.
Right.
And I'm a little bit leery about half a loaf everywhere else, because that starts to make things, in my mind, cloudier, not clearer.
Right,
the
and
model
I
is
mean,
actually
you have to
town
consider, it's important to consider all of those
I
issues.
think so.
If you're going to have a county administrator that's the executive, and the commissioners that are more policy and legislative, that's a whole different type
It's
of,
a model.
no, it's a different type of model.
We've
And-
always been policymakers.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, when their purpose was to eliminate the assembly and have the commissioners serve as the legislative branch and policymaking branch, continuing with what we do already. But the executive functions would move to the county administrator. There was a rationale for all 3 of those legs to be there at the same time. To do part of it, as Mark says, what is the value? The value, by going 3 commissioners, I always think of 3 as more of a conversation and 5 as more of a real deliberation, because you have to work harder when there are 5. You have more people more members to convince of something important, if there's more deliberation, if you will, on pending resolutions, on actions by the county. It takes 5 people, which is good because it brings 5 different points of view to the table as opposed to 3. So I'm never opposed to increasing the number because of the value of having 5 as opposed to 3. I mean, all you have to do is convince one person, and each of us, we just have to convince one other person of a specific goal or policy, and it's done. So I think to take a portion of the recommendations without having a full discussion of the full recommendation from the Assembly doesn't really bode well. And you have to remember, too, that you have to convince at least 51% of the voters that what you're doing is a good thing because it has to go on the ballot.
Absolutely.
So that takes a lot of public outreach. And right now, if this is just more or less an opinion. So I think, and we should put back on our agenda right after we get finished with the budget, go back to these special commission recommendations, review them again. We know which ones we've had. I personally think that what is far more important to us to devote our energies to is not so much whether we have 3 or 5 commissioners now, but that we have a sustainable source of revenue. You know, right now our revenue is up and down, and it's all based on how many houses are sold. I mean, not the bulk of it, but a good portion of it. And I think that we and the Assembly working together would do a greater service to the county if we spent our energies working on a sustainable source of revenue that we knew that we could rely upon as we move forward with the goals in our strategic plan and every other way. Because now it's like you wait every 3 months and say, how are we doing? You know, are we getting enough revenue? So I think that's a far more important objective to achieve.
In any institution, a stable source of revenue is essential to its stability.
Exactly.
And I would be the last one to deny that. My concern is that in enlarging government and adding more overhead to what I would call a very limited amount of revenue that we have now does not serve us well. I completely agree with the idea that perhaps our energy would be better spent not only finding sustainable revenue for the county, but what are we doing to help our constituents find sustainable income opportunities? I would think that the Assembly, with their Economic Affairs Committee and with their other committees, could hold hearings with regard to reaching out to the community to find out what they, as the representative in each one of the towns, can do to put people to work. They could also reach out to the towns. There's a huge issue going on about the consolidation of housing authorities. And one of the big concerns that I have as a housing authority member is that there's a possibility of losing local representation, the people that would go to town meeting to, let's say, to advocate for housing, to be subordinate to a regional board that would not have a direct contact in the community. I think that the Assembly could help us with that and help our community to come up with a solution that takes into account the saving of the administrative cost, which is what we're looking at, but also valuing the local representation and the people that that want to advocate for things. Putting energy and time into something like this as a former member of the Assembly, I would say, is not moving in a direction that's helpful. What it does is, and just like the 10 items that were brought up by the League, they all have to do with organization and governance, and there's only one item that actually is reaching out to the community, and that's the wastewater, which is, it's the top of my list. I don't know, I just see that the people that are elected to office, prime responsibility is to say at the end of every day of service, what have I done to enhance the quality of life for the people that I represent? Indeed, that's our mission statement. I'd like to see that the Assembly would pick that up. And as far as this goes, I would like to say that that I offer a response that says we acknowledge the receipt of this. This is moving in a direction that we'd like to see it, and we look forward to when they're going to convene the charter review process so that these can be discussed with the public and with, and with the community as to what the community sees us going into.
If I can just add, what the special commission looked at and what we are is, we're sort of like the old form of town government, where there was once a board of selectmen that were full-time selectmen, and there was an administrator that carried out whatever duties, whatever tasks they told them to. And all of the towns eventually adopted a more professional executive system where they hired an executive administrator. The board of selectmen are really sort of the board, the review board, and the overseers, and then it's the public town meeting vote. And I think that's where the special commission was bringing the county, to bring it up to that more professional level of executive authority and in day-to-day dealings. The problem with the county is that we, as executives, are the executives, but we're not full-time. We're not full-time and we're not paid full-time. So it's, we're not even paid half-time. However, we do put in a lot of time to what we do, and there never seems to be enough time to go through these details. I still think it would be worth our while to, yes, say that we approve, we accept their opinion,
Acknowledge it.
We acknowledge their opinion, we applaud them for whatever discussions they're having, but also say that these are, that there is many recommendations, and they also, and it shouldn't be like the assembly again. I mean, to me, it almost sets it up like, we're fine, you're not fine. And I don't want to say that the assembly's not fine, but we're fine. I think that we really do have to take an honest look at the entire structure of county government. As recommended, the different recommendations that were made to us, put those into a charter review panel. Say, these are the things that were recommended, and you've got to take yourself out of this a little bit, whether you're a commissioner or a delegate, and get a lot of members from the public so that they can have an understanding outside their whatever vested interest so there isn't a personal vested interest, but there is an objective look at how we're set up now and how we're going to the future. I think that we should write to the assembly, to the speaker, and say that we, as Bill said, that we look forward to them putting together a charter review. We recommend that they put a review committee together that would last about a year to give them time, and that they should have one in place by June.
Well, if you look at the last paragraph here, one thing they did not do was to really review the recommendation of the special commission, which was the 5 or 7 county commissioners and no assembly. I mean, obviously that it would be nice if they reviewed that recommendation and gave us their thinking on why they don't think that the assembly should be eliminated. I mean, obviously, there were some valid reasons in the commission's report as to why it should, but maybe what is their review of the special commission's recommendations, and why are they choosing to ignore that?
Excellent
or
question.
Maybe give us your opinion on why you think the assembly should remain, and if you do remain, then how do you then look at the other recommendations in terms of the executive functions and the number of county commissioners? Because it doesn't change anything. If you keep the assembly, it doesn't change anything. Adding
Just
more
adds
commissioners
more
doesn't
salary,
really
it adds more.
change anything.
At the end of the day, I look at this as a difference between production and marketing. Production makes things that it can make, and it can manage it very well. Marketing tries to convince people that they should look at the production. The charter review process, and I sat through many of them, is a process that is designed to have these discussions and put it out there. Indeed, it is their responsibility to convene the charter review process to do this. So this resolution is, in my opinion, is kind of counterintuitive to what the legislation says they are supposed to do. And what they're supposed to do is have this charter review. And in that process, they indeed could come up with what I would call sufficient reasons to support their opinion. Now, there is one thing that has not been done in all of this. We're having a conversation about what the Assembly sent over to us. What we haven't engaged is the public at large as to what their opinion is with regard to this, and perhaps something as simple as a step process, a focus group, followed by a general survey as to what the public at large would say, to test out what their opinion is, could indeed be a very useful piece of information that we could use to build a final outcome. We got the opinion of people that were engaged and involved with regard to what was going on. We have what I would call an opinion of, and based upon what I see there's an opinion that says, it's just as Sheila says, we're okay, you're not. So I don't know.
Well, but they also say that they seek to refine these concepts by working with the county commissioners, legal counsel, and/or any subcommittees that might be created for that purpose, so that a single restructured governance model would emerge. So so maybe our comment on that last paragraph should be, then it sounds like you are supporting a charter review committee.
Right.
But if you're suggesting that subcommittees or
Right.
whatever work together. Now, there is a commissioner that does get appointed to a charter review committee. So that would bring in the assembly, it would bring in a commissioner, and it would bring in legal counsel. So perhaps this is another way of saying they are recommending a charter review committee. So maybe we could respond to their last paragraph and say we agree.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
we agree that the best way to bring the assembly, the commissioners, and legal counsel together is through the creation or the appointment of a charter review committee, and we encourage they do that.
Yeah,
Can we
indeed we
respond
do,
in
because
something
the
like that?
process was designed to do exactly that,
Right.
and we recommend that they follow the process.
And if I can, and somebody has to remind me here, but if I remember correctly, the charter review, the process is set up so that it's set up in a certain time frame. And that can be extended and voted on by the assembly to make it a year review. I mean, to make it really a comprehensive, not just this willy-nilly, we're in there for what we want to change and we're going to stick in what our interests are, but to really have a group of people, not just heavily weighted with assembly or commissioners or even legal counsel from one side or the other, but to have a representation of the public, either former commissioners, former people who dealt with it, people who have some knowledge. Because even if you open it up to the people in the public, a lot of people don't even know that we exist. So to say, how do you like us? They're not even gonna start from square one. I think that you have to be able to present something like, this is what they're feeling, these are the options, these are the discussions that are going on now, and these are the reasons behind
But if they
those.
do it now, they have 15 months.
They have 15 months
And
to
they need at least 15 months
Right.
to do this. So
Typically,
they
you
shouldn't
get it on a
delay
ballot.
if they're going to do
Typically,
it.
it's the ballot. It has to be on a biennial state election.
Right.
So
Which is a
and
year
then it
from
has
November.
to be submitted to the
By June.
Secretary of State by a certain point.
I think
in
it's
time to
June.
get
So
on.
it has to be done by
So you have to
June
back
of
from that.
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
June.
Submitted to the, to this.
So that's 15
that
months.
area, so they have 15 months, and then if it goes on the ballot, then it's the public's opinion, and everybody,
Yeah.
you have the whole summer to argue your
Well,
case and have
typically,
public
the
hearings.
ballot
and-
question is only, do you approve of the changes made to the
Right.
Barnstable County
Right.
Charter? So you have an education process.
Right, from
To explain to people what
What
it
those-
is you've
from
done.
June to November,
So,
whatever
Yeah, we need
groups
to
wanna
move
go out
on.
there.
So maybe we could ask Mark if you could just draft something
this
based
is
on
all
this
it's on,
discussion?
Yeah, for 2 weeks, what I would recommend is, I just jotted it down, I perhaps might suggest that we propose an ordinance that establishes a charter review committee. You guys approve it, send it over, and you sort
Well,
of give
that's a
them
good
some
idea.
outline on
I think
what it
That in
does.
response to your resolution, we are proposing this ordinance.
So I didn't wanna spill
I like
beans,
that
yeah.
idea.
No, I think
Okay,
it's a good
in other
idea.
words, yeah, and then they fill in the date.
Right, they can, and then it's
Okay.
theirs to do, and we'll support them however we can, even if it's helping with lawyers or whatever.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Make it so.
All right.
2 weeks, I'll bring that back,
Okay.
we can have a discussion about
When do they meet?
Today.
it. They meet
They
the
don't
20th,
meet
next
today,
week,
they
because we
meet
gotta
next
bring the
week.
budget
Right, yeah,
over.
that's next week, right?
Would we have time
So
to
that's
have
what I
it
have.
done by next week or not?
I don't
No,
have
you
time,
don't
because I
have
have to
time.
create a 400-page
Right.
budget document
That's right, you do. So the-
from whole cloth.
Oh,
So it
I
would
don't know,
be-
some of it's cut and paste.
It is, no,
Yeah,
there's no
don't be,
question,
don't be.
but-
So it wouldn't be till March.
Okay, but we
March,
can
April, May, June,
acknowledge.
12, 13,
Yeah,
14,
maybe
15,
we should acknowledge it
14
and
months.
say that, you know,
And we
we are
have the
gonna,
intention.
Yeah,
in 2
next
weeks, you're gonna have a
week,
more
when we go
official
over,
Yeah.
we
response.
can say, you know, we did
Yes.
this, they'll know anyways.
They're
Yeah.
not here, they're not meeting today.
No.
No.
Okay, so we're acknowledging
The resolution by
and
proposing an
we
ordinance.
we will propose an ordinance that we'll get at your next
Next-
meeting after the budget.
Right,
Yeah, whatever.
okay.
Yeah.
Does that conclude the discussion on
That
that?
sounds good to
so.
me.
All right. Good. So now we want to move to the general budget discussion.
All right, well,
We
the
left
first-
off with, we were in a hole.
Yeah.
We were, but
You
first
fixed
thing we
that.
want to talk about before we get
Is the
to
travel
that is,
budget?
last week we didn't cover, take one and pass it along. I just printed out
Travel, right.
the 2012 final,
Oh, I forgot.
I have a couple of
budget
extra
stuff.
copies if
I know
people
too.
are interested. Travel budget, this is just, you know, just gives you a sense of what it is and has been. It hasn't really varied too much because we've been at 41 cents for quite some time. So you see contractual services is where the budget is. It's usually in-state travel, which is line item 5282. You guys back and forth to meetings and blah, 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 so you see there's some expenditures there. Similar to the assembly, they're one that has, you know, usually a relatively large travel budget, but even yours is for the whole year. It's only $8,600, and that
That's because
typically
we don't
includes.
submit it all the time.
Yeah, we don't submit.
Yeah,
anything.
sometimes
I
you
never
don't
remember
submit,
to do that.
yeah, as regularly as you should.
So where are you now? You're at,
I just was on the first one, so you see County Commissioner's Office, it's the contractual services, it's the group it's in. You see right in, sort of in the middle of the page there, year-to-date expended. This is for the full fiscal year 2012. So that was everything you spent last year on travel, $8,600, $8,614.37, which really includes any MMA reimbursements or any other things that you have.
can't find that number.
Yeah, can you say that again,
Where is
Mark?
it?
Where are you talking?
Okay,
86.
so I'm
So
on
go
the
from the
first page.
first page.
And you see the first 100 is your budget code, county commissioner's
Right.
office over here, and that's the column where it shows all the departments.
Right.
And almost in the middle of the page,
Oh,
maybe
I
just
see.
to the
Okay,
right
I
of the
see it.
middle of the page is the
Okay.
column that says year-to-date expended.
Yeah,
And so that's your expenditures, $8,600. We encumbered $1,800, and left over at that, on that line item was about $1,085. So you see that for each department. IT, as you would expect, this was before we were really doing a whole lot with Wellfleet, so you don't see very much on there, you know, $372. RDO, you see a little bit more on that because of the AmeriCorps program.
Oh, yeah.
Cape Light Compact, pretty modest, not a whole lot of travel there. Assembly, as I mentioned, you have 15 people every other week for twice a month coming in from various parts of the county, so you see a little bit more expenditure there. Finance, not too much. Facilities, very little. A little bit more in cooperative extension, mostly with the Marine program. Registry of Deeds, again, you wouldn't expect too much there, very little, $208. Dredge, you see a little bit more of that with some travel with the dredge folks, $4,700.
Does this item get charged back to Cape Light Compact?
Well, this was one we still had a budget for them in 2012, so this year we don't, so.
Okay, so this shouldn't be in here, right?
Exactly, for this year won't be in here. Health, you see the biggest one, a little bit more on the health budget. You see tobacco has a pretty decent expenditure because they do a lot of travel, so that's about $8,000. But the biggest one you see is really, it's the second one down, $15,000. That's the sanitarians, that's back and forth to the towns, doing services for the towns. That's really what that
And
is.
then, but the towns pay for those services, so.
Some they do and some they don't.
Some they don't.
When we're covering on a short-term basis, we won't typically charge them. Like if the town calls up today and says, George, somebody's out sick, I really need somebody to come in, can you send somebody? They'll send them, but we still have to reimburse the employee for the travel.
can I ask a question?
What page are you on?
I am on the page 4,
Okay.
Yeah,
under Health and Environment.
yeah.
That's where you were just talking.
I was, yeah.
You were just speaking about that, okay. So, You have in-state, so I get that going back and forth to the towns and that sort of thing. So they've gone over, no, they haven't gone over budget, their
No.
original appropriation, all right. So on the tobacco grant, what do we do for tobacco grant mileage? Where do we go with that?
Well, usually they're in the various towns, except Dennis, doing the sting operations.
Oh, yeah,
So it's to reimburse people for traveling to whatever town they happen to be in at that point in time. Typically, that's what they're doing now, is the sting stuff.
is that what the grant is about?
I should say, that one
Yeah.
is all money that we get from the tobacco fund.
I understand, yeah, I
that
understand.
was covered
And
for
that's
that.
how we're supposed to be doing it, is
Yeah,
doing
that's
stings?
typically what they're doing now. Human services, a little bit. The out-of-state one typically is to an out-of-state conference.
Right.
It includes both the mileage and any travel reimbursements, hotel reimbursements, those types of things. Children's Cove, and then Cape Cod Commission is the other one that has quite a bit, which you would
Right.
expect, because you have
Right.
to travel to whatever various DRIs are being considered at any point in time, so.
Yeah, the travel is for the commission members who,
It's
Who
both for
attend the
staff
meetings?
and
And the
commission
commission
members.
members, right, so
Both,
those,
yep.
right.
And so total travel budget for 2012 that we expended was $137,000. So that's
That's pretty good
typical, it's not
overtime.
way out, that's not out of the ordinary. But don't forget, for next fiscal year, we're increasing from 41 to 55. So that'll go up probably about 34%.
but much of that is reimbursed. I mean, it's covered by grants.
Yeah,
or
some of
by-
that is, I
some
wouldn't
of
say
it,
much.
not all of it.
I
but-
would say about 33%.
33%.
25 to 33% is my estimate.
So,
Because it's a specific grant item, or it's the tobacco program, or it's whatever particular grant program is involved in the travel.
So you're estimating that you go up to about 180,000?
Yeah, about that.
Okay.
So that's our travel budget.
yeah, okay, that's good. I'm glad
Yeah.
to see that. That's very helpful to have
Yeah,
that
it's
information.
not a lot. I do encourage, staff members and their department managers to, if people have an opportunity to go on a conference, that they should go. Many of them go as speakers, in which case they'll get a reimbursement for their travel.
I wanted
That
to
is so
mention too,
important.
a recent happening here. In order to become a certified procurement officer, it's required that the individual spend a minimum of 3 days at workshops that are provided by the state. It's a training option. And if you attend the 3 days of training and you pass the test, then you can become certified to be a procurement officer, to be able to handle procurement. And this year, the county was able to, and usually everybody has to go to Boston. And you have to go either, you go back and forth for 3 days in a row, or if you have family or whatever, you stay there. And it's a real burden, to go back and forth to Boston. So the county contacted the Inspector General's office, which does the procurement training. And they said that, we said to them, we'd like to be able to offer that here. So they set it up here for 3 days at the Harbor View Room, and the state did it through like a webinar. And our IT department was able to make all those connections possible. So 35 people on the Cape were able to attend that 3-day training workshop right here in the Harbor View Room. Saved everybody having to go to Boston. I think that's
wonderful.
That's county government
At
doing good
At two
things.
levels. That was our IT department supporting something
That's
that was
right.
needed. And I think there's kudos to them
Yeah.
by putting that together. Because I have the sense that everyone who works for us in the county are committed and want to do as good a job as possible. And I think the
Yeah.
IT department setting that up, I think, is an
It
example
was
of
a
that.
great idea.
Yeah.
And they're doing it again in October.
Wonderful.
So that's really a great service for the towns. Anyway, I
That's
thought it was
good, yeah,
important
that's
to
good.
mention
I'm
that.
glad you mentioned that. Because Elaine Davis works very hard
Elaine
on
worked
that,
very
yeah.
hard on that, yeah.
Yeah, and she's, everyone I speak with, town managers, those types, always comment on, oh, what a great job she does on
Oh, yeah. We're very
Yeah,
lucky
she
to
put
have
that,
her.
she actually was the one who put that together.
Yeah.
I get worried every time Tommy Cahir talks to her because I think he might be recruiting to have her
Oh.
come back to work for him.
Yeah, right, yeah, she used to work.
Okay,
All right,
Next.
so that's the travel
so
budget.
that's the travel budget.
And so then the next thing is the budget. I thought we had a good discussion yesterday, so here is the summary revenues and expenditures pages. And I did what we talked about, and I had to do a couple of other things. I went through the health insurance piece, did that at the 8% level that we talked about. Maggie's actually at the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group budget today, where they're deciding on what amount of subsidy from their fund they're going to be using. Hopefully, they're going to be using the greater amount of subsidy, so we'll be in line with the 8%. There actually might be some additional saving, so that's good. I did everything that we talked about last week, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side. And basically, what we see now is I'm $63,000 out of whack, but we can take care of that pretty simply. I'll go through, and there's either a couple of options, depending on what comes out of the Cape Cod Municipal Health Group meeting. That might take care of it if they use some of the, a greater amount of the subsidy. That might take care of that, and we won't have to worry about it. If they don't, then I'll have to go back and I'll nickel and dime a couple of line items here, there, and everywhere throughout the departments and come up with the 63,000.
It's pretty much in the noise that
So
we
we're-
get down to that level.
Yeah, I hate to say 63,000 is chump change, but
No,
it's
but 20, out of
it's
a
certainly something
$27
that we
million,
can,
almost $28 million budget.
certainly something that we can deal with.
Yeah.
I did want to point out, so overall, you're talking about an 18.26% increase, and that probably jumps out at people, but you see that $2.3 million of it is on the
Yeah,
capital side. We're really
exactly.
dealing with some
And I think that-
capital deferred maintenance
Right.
issues that we have out there. If you take the capital out, it's 8.4%, it's a little bit better. And I would then also point out that a substantial proportion of that 8.4%, I didn't quite do the numbers yet, are devoted to really a couple of things, and that's the Cape Cod Commission County Joint Initiatives on the SIO and on the RUS.
Right.
And then another $100,000 of that is on the wastewater side for the collaborative. So a
Right.
substantial portion of the 8.4% is really devoted to some of these new initiatives that we're doing.
I think that your letter should reflect the,
Yeah.
That's the next
Yeah.
step, and that's what I'll bring
It's doing
back
that.
next week. You'll get a copy of it before then, so you'll be able to see it.
Yeah,
And it'll deal with some of that, it'll deal with the policy, the budget policies that we're gonna be considering putting together, so I'll give sort of an outline of what those are going forward. It'll deal with the vehicle fund that we talked about putting forward for next year, so,
yeah, so it will outline the specific initiatives and program plans
exactly.
that will become part of the budget each year in terms of our budget policies.
Yeah. So,
And also, it's based on the strategic plan initiatives as well this
right.
year. And when you think about it, 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
yeah, 4 years ago when we did the budget, our budget was like 26 million, I think.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
like
and it was
24,
tight.
25.
And it was very tight,
Yeah.
and we had to cut back each
Yeah.
subsequent year till we got down to 23 million.
Right.
So we lost at least almost 3 million plus as part of our budget because of the downturn
Yeah.
in the economy, because of the deeds, excise tax, all of that. So now we're not even going back up to where we were
Right,
originally, but we're trying to shift in a way how we spend some of the money that we do have. And the capital plan will obviously, that's an important thing to have, and to spend that money on the infrastructure planning. But as part of the operating budget itself, to try to fund the strategic initiatives that are important to the county. This isn't just adding people or, it's really based on strategic initiatives, and I think that's what we have to concentrate on when we meet with the assembly.
And I think the program letter that we,
That we
write,
did will help them
have
understand
reflects,
that.
because that is a philosophy. The thing you spoke of at the beginning of our meeting, where we need to focus on finding sustainable revenue, is a key part of, let's say, of avoiding the kind of downturn that we have in there. Naturally, programs should be examined at the end of every year for effectiveness, but at the same time, I have not seen what I would call an outcry from the community that says that there are programs that we're providing that are not needed as opposed to wanted. That they're all needed, they all support the idea of them, and that there's been no cry to say, why are we wasting our, why are we wasting our money on providing a service that we don't, value?
Exactly.
Well, I
And
think also, so revenue stability and future revenue opportunities, the whole SIO and Ross are going to provide those. So some of
That's
this
right.
is real seed money
It
to
is, right.
future efforts to build the capability to
And more
generate some
sustainable
revenues.
revenue.
Yeah.
Because we're going to offer services that
Yeah,
towns will
exactly.
pay for.
There'll be
Right.
more of a
It's a whole new area we
Right.
haven't done before.
Right.
so.
Because they will be saving money on their end.
Sure.
And then they will be paying less money to us to have those services available.
So I didn't really have any other specific.
No,
things.
well, I
We sort
think
of did
that's
what we
said we
talked
had to
about
do.
last week.
Mhm.
There aren't really anything different in that specifically.
No, and
So-
it also includes, like you say, SIO, Strategic Information Office,
Yeah.
and also what our IT needs are going to be going forward. And that is still work in progress.
Yep.
But we did meet with the consultant from the Collins Institute at UMass Dartmouth. He's affiliated with them. They did
Is this
they did
after-
the assessment for the Cape Cod Commission, the IT assessment.
Right.
And we're going to move forward doing it here for us.
Have they come down here, or is this just
He
the?
came
Well, we
down
had a brief meeting, Mark and I
Thursday, yep.
and Christy Senatori.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The-
So
the
then
other
he met
day.
with
Okay.
IT staff.
And
yeah,
he's
okay.
meeting with the IT staff, and then he'll come back with a proposal.
he's
I'm
gonna
very
start-
excited about the
I am
Collins,
too. I think
because
this is great.
we're going to end up with something that's going to be a very long-term solution
Well-
to a continuing problem.
Well, it's like, what is his name, Bornstein? He was the librarian of the Congress
Yes.
for many years, from the 80s to the late 90s. And he always had a quote, which I love, that you cannot plan for the future without, he said, to plan for the future without a sense of history is like planting cut flowers. And I kind of look at that in the way of IT, where we have some ideas, we have this vision of where we will be going, but how do we get there? And then you have to go back and look at the history and think about where we've been and how do we plan for this? And that's really what we're doing. We're really doing this future planning to bring us to a county level of service that we've not seen before. It's kind of fascinating when you think about it.
And I believe that that's something that was mentioned in that book that I've been going through. Was it Exploring the Boundaries? Yeah.
Working across boundaries.
Working across boundaries, because I
That
think
should be required reading,
Well,
I
I
think,
think so.
for us.
And I know that I've been doing a lot of annotating, on it, because it seems, what I'm getting out of it is a template for going ahead. And I think that part of it has been very useful. And I think that when we talk to the Collins people, I'll be very interested to see how much of that they incorporate into their proposal as far as an outcome once they do the evaluation.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to mention, in terms of the SIO and the RUS, there's over $1 million in this budget specifically for that function, of which 800,000 is in the, a little bit over 800,000 is the commission budget, and we have about 206,000.
Mhm.
So there's some substantial resources devoted to
Yeah, and I think those are the things the assembly needs to hear,
it. Yeah.
too, when we make that
Yeah, and have an
presentation.
understanding that this
And
is
they are
really
getting it.
very
I
important.
happened to talk with one of them, one of the members the other day, and they're beginning to really see what the planning aspects are of this budget. It isn't just, let's do a little more of the same.
no,
But there's
Right,
a lot of
exactly. There's some-
strategic
There's a
planning in
Judy
here,
at the
and they're
bottom. Let's
beginning
have a
to
show.
really understand that, yeah.
Yep. So-
Okay.
So it's good, very good.
Do we have anything else that
No.
we need to take up today?
Yes, on the summary of actions.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I have an amendment note to the summary of actions. I would like to include the language, in accordance with our responsibility as fiscal agent for Cape Light Compact. That would apply to number 2, 3, 4 items. I've asked for this language to be part of this, and I insist that it be part of it, whatever we pass today.
Okay, so would you like to,
I have it written out here, okay? So I'm going to make...
so
but I have-
items 2,
but I-
3, and 4 will be amended to include the language.
In accordance with our responsibility as fiscal agent for Cape Light Compact. Okay, now, in item 5 and 6 and 7, I have...
Well, make that one motion.
Okay.
And
I-
then, you want a second?
Yeah, second.
Is there discussion on the motion?
No.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous,
Okay.
okay?
I have questions on item 5, 6, and 7 as to why we're getting involved with the Barnstable Housing Authority.
Because it probably involves home loan program
Right.
money from, the program that Paul Rashinsis
Yeah,
administers.
it's the
We
consortium.
get like 740,000 every year from the feds. It's probably, those funds are involved in that project.
Well, I thought there was a limitation of $50,000 on loans per unit. So I guess that was what was throwing me off, because that would have been $600,000.
Well, it's $200,000 for 12 units.
It's 12 units.
Well,
That's
12
20-some
times
thousand.
50
Yeah.
Yeah, that's less than,
that's
Yeah.
less than that, so I'm just,
50,000.
I guess what I don't know what the thinking of. I know that the consortium supported some housing in Harwich, for example, and I believe it was in the, more in the order of, let's say we had 12 units, and I think it was much less than, than that amount of money. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out how they arrived at those figures. I don't have any problem and can support the execution of it, but I did have those questions as to how they arrived at the, at the money. And what is our role in this? We're subordination, do we have a role where we were exposed for responsibility for the, for the public? For the,
No, it's called subordination because any other lenders have, they're ahead of you in line, and ahead of this program in line. But that's how the program is designed.
Okay.
And I believe it's actually over a period of time. If you're still the primary resident, it's forgiven. Don't quote me on those.
Yeah, you're right. There
Yeah.
is a piece that
Yeah.
but that's for
But that's
purchase.
what the stats
That's for
support.
purchasing property, not
Right.
for rental property.
Right.
Okay,
But
well,
this doesn't involve county funds, these are purely the home program funds.
Right.
And it just means that those funds, the loans that they're making are subordinate to any other lender's funds.
I want that piece to be clear, because when the questions that come from the Assembly lately are, where is this money coming from? And in spite of trying to be clear with regard to definition, there seems to be some question in their mind as to whether or not we're using budget funds. And
Well, it
I'm
might
sure
be
we're
good to have
not.
Paul back in
Yeah.
March and just say, this is what's going on, here's what we do, these are what these programs are for.
I think that would be very.
Yeah.
I think it would be too. I mean, it's a federal program. I mean, basically, we just carry out the program, and this is some of the parameters. If you look at 12, I mean, I just did the math here. If you look at 12 units and they're executing 200,000, it comes to it's 16,600.
Right.
So it's, it's well within the parameters. It's what they do all the time. I'm sure it's exactly what they did in Harwich.
Don't forget, it's also.
It just that it looks like it's lumped, so,
So the
but it would
need
be good for Paul.
expands, but the federal money we get sort of stays the same. It's a lot like the Meals on Wheels program.
yeah. Yeah,
That's part
Exactly.
of the problem. The jam gets a little bit thinner every year.
right, and you've gotta execute it according to their guidelines. It's not us making the rules here, so.
Okay, then I'd move 5, 6, and 7.
And how about, oh,
And
okay,
the other ones we
We already moved
amended,
the other
yeah,
ones, yeah.
I second.
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, I just wanted to mention
Here's
one
the
other.
language that I want to put in there.
Yeah.
That's your other
Just
thing.
need-
Well, the other thing was, in terms of where we've been in the last
Mhm.
week, the Cape Cod Selectmen and Councilors Association met
Yeah.
last Friday morning
Oh.
before the snow. And Maggie Downey and Charlie McLaughlin made a presentation to the association on the compact and CVAC. And it was very well received by the selectmen. It's amazing how knowledgeable all these selectmen are of compact and CVAC, because as you know, each town has a representative to each one. So I asked that afterwards that maybe their executive board would consider making a presentation to the assembly from the Selectmen's Association. After all, they are the ones who appoint the members, and that the value that they could present as an association of selectmen, the value of these organizations to the towns.
Brilliant.
Don't you think? So I don't know,
Brilliant.
they said they would take it up, but I thought that might be very helpful for the assembly to hear from the people who appoint their representatives to these
Mhm.
organizations, how they value the work that they do, the work of the organizations, and the contributions that their appointed members make, and they're reporting back to the towns on the enormous values that both organizations have for the citizens on the Cape.
I think we should do everything we can to encourage
To
that
encourage
to happen.
them.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, actually, you're saying the Selectmen Association, I think that, even the town managers, I think that they make a very good argument
Mhm.
because they are the fiscal overseers, and they see the savings, not just from the Cape Light Compact, but they do see that directly, and let's face it, the Cape Light Compact, for all, whatever people want to churn up about it, that's all beside the point of the work it really does do, and it has saved all of the towns money through,
Almost
solar.
$60 million.
Dollars.
But not just,
That's right.
that's in conservation
60, yeah.
efforts, and it's also in their solar programs, their municipal things, so,
Yeah.
I mean, they've all seen the benefits of this, and I think
Right.
that, those discussions need to be heard, and, I think that we've heard it very articulated beautifully from some of the town managers,
Yeah,
more so than even selectmen, who are really the ones with the pencils and
yeah,
the.
but you'd be
and the adding
amazed how,
machines.
but they're very knowledgeable
Oh,
about
they-
the compact and what their appointees are doing.
Well, they've
so-
done a lot of work, I think, with the compact that people
Yeah.
don't realize over the
Well,
years.
I know that Barry Worth, Howard's
Mhm,
rep,
yes.
is the gold standard as
Yes,
far as
he is.
Right.
keeping the selectmen advised and informed.
Right.
Even more than you, Bill?
Absolutely more than me. I stand in awe
Amazing.
of the commitment that Barry has made over the years. And Larry, Barry, and I also serve on the utility committee in Harwich. And I would say that if any board is advised and informed, it would be the select board in Harwich. But you have others that offer the same kind of support and service. They do show up, to talk about what the Cape Light Compact does. And not just by example, but by delivery, there's the benefit, that comes directly to the towns. And
Yeah,
I know
the
that,
benefits are-
that Ed Lewis, got
Oh,
kind of
yeah, he was there.
exercised, at the MMA, and rightly so, because no one wants to see this direct benefit to the community, go away, nor have its resources, let's say, attacked by what I would call a continuing barrage of innuendo and questions and half-truths with regard to what does go on. And at the end of the day, the value is seen because of the delivery that's made. So I hope
Well,
that continues.
there was another point that was mentioned too, is that the audits that were requested by the assembly, they are costing upwards of $130,000 a year, or $130,000, which comes right out of the energy funds, because that has to pay for it. So that reduces then the value of being able to use those funds back toward the communities.
So again,
Not only the towns,
because
but
of-
to the residents as well.
One might, speaking as a former chair, one might say that the cost of doing business is to perform a complete audit, and perhaps
This is in addition to the regular
This is in
audits.
addition to the regular audit, and it's in addition to the requirements that the state puts on for reporting, and it's in addition to all the other grant management functions that are in place. But This is something that apparently has caught the attention of at least one member of the Assembly, and he's insisting that this money be diverted from direct benefits to the community so that his interest, could be served. And I think that it does not, it does not serve the community well to take money that could go for direct benefit to provide another layer of autocracy because of innuendo that comes from someone that doesn't even live here or pay taxes here or is not a stakeholder here. So it's, but it's being done. We are responding to it, and my successor at the Cape Light Compact, the first woman, by the way, who was chairing the Cape Light Compact, Joyce Flynn, no cousin, no relation,
No,
right?
I know, she made it clear
Is,
too. Not
and
related.
Joyce is probably a lot more gracious than I am with regard to dealing with many of these things, which reflects her, let's say.
That's not hard.
Well, you said that. We accept your
Thank you,
comments.
thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, last Friday was supposed to be the Aging and Disability
Yes.
Forum, which was canceled among many other things, and that is now going to be held on March 12th, no, March 1st, which is what, 2 weeks from
A week from
A week
Friday.
from Friday. So it's going to be at the same place, same time, Cape Codder. You can go on to the barnstablecounty.org and scroll through the departments to Human Services or to barnstablecountyhumanservices.org and get more information. So I wanted to put that in. And also we met, the collaborative met last Friday. I didn't make the Selectmen's Association, but I did make that. And basically we're just sort of discussing the role of in support of, the efforts that are going on and how can we best utilize ourselves. And is there a role? And if there isn't, then, say that and bow out. But I do think that there is a role for us, and we're kind of exploring that, and also in support of, Jane was there from Eastham, and they definitely have some problems, water problems there, and how can we support the efforts of not just wastewater, but the water and the ponds and the different issues that they're going through. So it was a very interesting discussion going forward, and I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
I was a teacher's assistant on Thursday and Friday, so that's why I didn't
Always
show up.
interesting. Okay, well, that's good.
Well,
So we all survived. I bet you didn't even lose your power.
oh, yes,
Oh, you did, okay.
3 days.
Yeah, me too.
And so did I.
Yeah,
But
yes.
what
I was
Barbara
out on
really
the
upset
street
at me
corners
about is
waving them
that
down.
across the street there was a wire down. If I had spotted that earlier, I could have called up and said, if we have a safety matter, and they would have shown up a day sooner.
Yeah.
So I haven't heard the end of that.
Yeah, there's
It was
some,
buried in the snow, you didn't see it.
there were a lot of, once Boston released their troops, they came down to the Cape.
Yeah.
There were not that many there, like Saturday and Sunday, but I think Sunday afternoon or sometimes Sunday, Boston released a lot of those vehicles down, and it made a big difference because they were able to get more people on. The shelters, I think, worked very well.
We ought to have Sean come in and give us an
Yeah, and give us
after-action.
a report
Yeah,
on
because
that.
some did lose power. They had some glitches there up in Sandwich and everything else, I mean, but
Yeah.
they
Well,
really
Sean
Yeah.
were.
Barnstable,
It's
Sean
good
was
to hear.
at the MAC quite a bit, at the base.
Yeah.
The multi.
But the NSTAR, I know in Falmouth at the EOPS, Emergency Operations Center, there was an NSTAR person that would come and go, but they took information rather than provided information. That's what I seem to get from it. And even if you look at their outage chart online, which you can look at, NSTAR, it doesn't really zero in on, it just kind of gives you a
It didn't give you a
vague.
map, it just
Yeah.
gave you
It's-
numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, and when
So-
it was saying 41% is back in Harwich or
Yeah,
Falmouth,
I know.
it didn't say
But
where that
what-
was.
No.
What are you gonna do? I mean, I
No.
do think that there were these odd pockets, and,
Yeah.
So I called up the police department and said, where can I get a cup of coffee this morning? So they basically said Harwichport was open, and I went down there because you don't want to be driving around, looking for,
That was the
looking for
thing that I missed, it's amazing the small things you miss. And I made a list of, those pioneer things I'm gonna have in my home now for when the great disasters come and stay. I can heat something up, but, Yeah, just having a hot cup of coffee in the morning
What
was.
Barbara did the night before,
It was
before
something
the
that
power
was
went out,
really-
she made up coffee and put it in a thermos, so we had hot coffee
Oh,
on Saturday
right,
morning.
right.
So I give her all kinds of kudos
Well, I have
for
a
looking
gas
at
stove,
it.
so
Exactly.
I could cook anything.
Okay.
The oven didn't work, but the stove.
Well, I'm
No,
all
I had
electric.
nothing.
Yeah, I know, well, that's part of the
Yeah,
Yeah,
problem.
me too, I had
being all
nothing,
electric.
nothing at all.
Well,
Anyway,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
think, but
So we're all
I
here,
think
thank
And
God.
so have Sean come down in a week or so and
Yeah, I
just
will.
so he can give us
the
a,
sandwich shelter went out, you know,
Yeah.
they're generating.
Yeah, and Nauset did too, so
And
those
they
are
brought all the
things they've
people
gotta-
to Falmouth,
and
so we had like
and they
200.
called off school for the rest of the week, so they got a 2-week vacation off
Right.
the sandwich because of not having the
They'll,
generator.
they'll pay for that in the end though.
Oh, yeah.
That's what those poor kids don't
I know, they'll
understand.
be in
Yeah,
school.
But,
so they'll be
um,
going to school through
July
July 4th.
But they, but I do think that, you know, there's probably lessons learned, I mean, successes and lessons learned from that whole experience, so it would be good to go over that. And
Well,
see what
I
they
think
come up
that the
with.
first lesson learned is that what you just said, which was collecting information is not the same as being a little bit more accurate,
Providing it.
because when I was on emergency duty for Boston Edison, we had these maps, and
Yeah.
they would say, okay, this section is
Yeah,
connected.
that
So they know
neighborhood,
this.
right,
They have to know this in order to dispatch their
Well,
trucks.
If you wanted to know anything, the Hess Station on Route 151 in Sandwich Road, that's where all the South Carolina people were with all their trucks.
They talk,
So if
yeah.
you really wanted to know, you go up there and ask them, and they tell you what's going on and where they were going.
I think the guy that fixed our line was from Tennessee.
well, I'll have Sean come in next week.
Yeah,
When I'm
that's-
done.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So now,
Right.
next week, I was
You had
gonna
mentioned the
ask
2
that
o'clock
if we
start
could
time.
have a 2 o'clock start time next Wednesday.
Okay.
that's fine.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
And then we have the assembly at 4 because we're making the budget presentation.
Okay, that's right. We should make let's say, a show of solidarity and all show up for the budget, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Any other
Okay.
business? Hearing none, a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, good, thank you all.